Hi, I'm Joanna Fortune, psychotherapist and author of the 15-Minute Parenting series of books. That is 3 volumes. Here you see them here. We've got the 0 to 7 years, that's talking about those early childhood years, that key developmental stage and everything that comes with it. And I'm going to be making reference in this talk right now to a lot of what's in here about the developmental stages of play and the different types of play that our children do engage in quite naturally, but also need to. My second book in this series is about middle childhood, those 8 to 12 years, when our children are growing up and just changing, a little bit as they move away from us and towards their friends and really investing in friendship, when play patterns also change away from that more mostly creative, imaginative, into quite structured play like skating, rollerblading, scooters, bikes, rounders, games like that as well. Still play and still lots of ways we can inject creativity and imagination into our children's lives. And then my most recent book is my book for the teenage years, when it might seem like, oh yeah, Joanna, I get all that play stuff with the little kids, but can you really play with your teenagers? Absolutely, emphatically, yes, you can. And this book is filled with, creative communication strategies and ways to be playful. Because my premise in writing my 15-minute parenting series, and also in what I'm going to talk to you now about the way our children play, is that play isn't a box of toys in the corner of a room. Play is a state of mind and a way of being. We have to embrace play as a language because it is. It is the language that our children speak. And in order to connect and communicate with them in their language, at their level, we have to learn how to play. And we've all been children at some point, we've all played, but maybe in our adult life, in our parenting life, and life has gotten quite serious along the way, maybe our play muscles are a little stiff and we need to do some workouts to get them going again. And that's what 15-minute parenting is about. Aside from all of that, and what's underpinning is I'm very passionate, I hope I'm conveying that to you, about play, but I think that we have to get away from very kind of traditional understanding of play as something children do. You just give them a box of something and they'll sit and play. And to some extent that's true, they will play, but play is about more than that. Play is literally how children understand themselves, others, the world around them. It's how they develop a sense of self, who they are, what that means, what am I worth, what am I deserving of. It's how they learn about relationships. It's how they acquire skills like life skills, like critical thinking, reciprocity, and essentially empathy. Without play and playfulness in their lives, empathy cannot come. And without empathy, we're opening up a Pandora's box of all kinds of difficulties and trouble, not just for our children and ourselves and our relationship with them, but for society at large. So let's get playing. And we're playing with our children from the very first moments of their life, even in pregnancy. And I know at this stage what I'm about to say is, of pregnancy, it can be largely about weight distribution, hip to hip, but we're swaying. We're swaying while our babies are still within us. And we move and we do, and you know why? Because it's rhythm. Rhythm and synchrony, that swaying, humming, those kind of rubbing movements that we do. Rhythm and synchrony trigger the subsystem of the brain associated with emotional regulation. When we feel out of sorts, or when our children feel out of sorts, one of the quickest ways to get back into sync is to use synchrony. Put some music on. I call it dance the moodies away, when we all know it as parents, that time of the day when you've played all you can play and somehow it's still only 5 o'clock and you've still got 90 minutes to go till bedtime, or maybe more depending on the age of your children, and everybody's kind of getting at each other and needling at each other and it's all getting a little bit hot in the house. I like to just throw on some music, whatever that song is. It could be, the Rolling Stones, or it could be Disney soundtrack. It doesn't matter. Whatever comes on your playlist when you hit play. And for the duration of that song, everybody just stops what they're doing and dances. Gets silly. Moving arms, legs, big movements, small movements. Everybody just moves around and uses rhythm and synchrony. And by the end of the song, we have forgotten what we're so annoyed about. We're laughing, we're smiling, and we're back in sync together. I call it Dance the Moodies Away. So make sure you have your little Dance the Moodies Away playlist ready. But I started by talking about pregnancy and how we're already playing at that stage. When our children are then born, we instinctively know a way to soothe them is to rock and sway them. in our arms, or, you know, a little bassinet that sways and we move it like this. And it's familiar to them because they've been rocking and swaying within us before they were born. We also play with our babies in how we speak to them. Simply communicating with them is play. You could be coming down the stairs, and maybe because you've no one else to talk to or whatever it is, maybe you're so sleep deprived you're just narrating your day out loud to make sure you understand what's happening next. But in doing so, we might be coming down the stairs and saying to our little babies in our arms, we're going to go outside, we'll get into the buggy, and the baby might make a gurgle noise back to us, and and we respond to that by going, you're right, it's very cold, we'll have to put our hats on, we're going to put your hat on, it'll be so snuggly, and we might even touch the side of their face. And then they might say something else, a little sound, an enunciation, and we interpret and respond and go, yes, maybe we will see the ducks when we're out for a walk today, let's see. And in that kind of exchange, it's not like our little babies can understand what we're saying and going, well, yes, I really am up for the ducks today. It's not that. It's how we're saying it. It's the prosody of our voice, that musicality, that again, that rhythm and synchrony, that pitch, pace and tonality of our voice. That's play. When we sing to them, when we hum to them, when we dance with them and move them around, when we touch their little faces as we're talking to them, all of that is beautiful play, and we're already doing it in infancy. In very early childhood, in that infant stage, the only toy, prop, like a prop-based toy that a child needs is you. Your child can play without anything. They don't need squeaky beepy things. Fine if you have them, but make sure you're also putting yourself into that play. So you're maybe waving the little toy in front of them and then hiding it and bringing it back really quick and hiding it, so that you're nurturing that permanence piece, that even when you don't see Teddy, he still exists somewhere and he's coming back. Because then through that play, they transfer that, Teddy still exists when I don't see him, to you. We do peekaboo, like this, with our children. We're gone, we're back, and we're teaching them that even when you don't see me, I still exist and I'm coming back to you. That's permanence play, and that's all happening in infancy. Running alongside all of that, though, as they're coming into that more robust and toddler stage, and even in infancy, to be honest, we've got stage 1 developmental play, 0 to 3, even 3.5 years old. And that is sensory, messy embodiment play. That is touch-based play. That is about discovering that I have a skin that contains me and marks where I end and the world and people outside of me begin. That is about containment. It's also about, when you give your child a toy in a box and they throw out the toy and they play with the box and you're just going, why did I even bother? It's because the box is a literal container. It has an inside and an outside. I can climb in, climb out, fill it up, empty it out. And that's actually helping me discovering that sense of self, that I'm a person in the world and that there is a world and people outside of me. My skin contains me. Running alongside that is my sensory play, sand, water, bubbles, Play-Doh. You should know by looking at me and probably your floor and walls what I've been playing with. I wear it, it's all over me. Think about that kind of messy play and embrace it. The second stage of play that takes me from 3.5 up to 5.5 years old is projective narrative play. So this is the type of play where I have 2 little toys. It could be 2 dinosaurs, 2 trains, 2 little dollies, and I have them talk to each other over and back. So it's usually something that's going on in my life that's familiar with me. It might be, go to bed, but I'm thirsty. No, you can't have a drink, go to bed. They take something that we talk to them about and they project it outside of themselves onto these toys, and they use the over and back, that serve and return of the narrative play to deepen their understanding of what's going on in that. This is, again, in order to think about this, in order to do this type of play and to do one voice and the other voice, here's a problem, here's a solution, over and back, I have to be able to consider the perspectives of others. I have to be able to hold another person's mind in my mind. What might they be thinking and feeling? And of course, that type of play is the route to empathy. It is the route to solution-focused thinking, to critical thinking, to reciprocity. It is in that stage of developmental play that general civility is being laid down. Not that they nail it at 4, but that their capacity to grow and develop it later on is there. This is also a stage of play, and I'm only going to kind of say a brief comment on this for the time restraints on our video talk today, but we shouldn't sabotage our children's play with screen-based devices, because watching Peppa and George play something out on a screen is not the same as me holding Peppa and George and having them do it. One is happening to me, cognitive virtual stimulation, and one is happening of me. It's affective, it's coming out of my thoughts and feelings and I'm coming up with it. It's the latter that they'll draw developmental benefit from. The third stage of developmental play then, that takes them from 5.5 up to 7 years old, is about role play. And role play is not nice costume dress up. There's nothing wrong with costume dress up play. It's gorgeous, it's lovely, embrace it. But that's not the same as developmental role play. Because if I dress up as Elsa from Frozen and I'm wearing Elsa from Frozen's costume, I am Elsa from Frozen. The prop decides what the play is. I play out that story. But if you give me a big scarf, I could lay that on the floor and it could be a magic carpet that me and the toys jump on and fly away. It could be, a cape and I could be a superhero. It could be a picnic blanket. It could wrap up my dollies as babies. It could wrap up my arm as a bandage and I have to go off to hospital. My play will decide what the prop is, not the other way around. So think old school when we're talking about, the kind of role play I'm speaking about. Think about, old bags and shoes and shirts and scarves and things like that, because that's what I can project onto. It's a dramatic stage of play. Everything I took in stage 1 about understanding myself and others, I pushed out in stage 2 onto the little toys and miniatures. I now insert myself into in stage 3, and I'm trying on the roles. I am the teacher, I am the mom or dad, I am the doctor, I am the vet, whatever it is, I'm in that role. And because it's dramatic, I'm pushing boundaries and I'm seeing how far could I be. So when you're walking by the playroom or your sitting room and you see all the teddies lined up against the wall and they're in role of teacher and they're roaring abuse at those teddies, don't feel like you've got to rush into the school and say, what is going on in that classroom? I'm pushing boundaries, I'm testing limits, and I'm wondering what I could get away with in those roles. It's a wonderful stage of play. It's so, so important. Those are the kind of basic stages of play. Again, I detail those a lot more in my 15-minute parenting books, particularly the 0 to 7 years, because it's pertinent to that stage of development. But our children will play without too much interference from us, generally speaking. We tend to only notice gaps in those stages when they haven't happened, when you might be listening going, gosh, I don't think my child did a lot of that stage of play, and that might correlate to some overt behavioural challenges or symptoms that you're experiencing now. Maybe not, but it might. Our children also, as well as having access to those stages of play, they also need access to outdoor play. And actually, even if you go, yeah, my child loves outdoors, might they be getting enough outdoor play? The average child, young child, toddlerhood, under 7 years old, really needs between 1 and 3 hours of outdoor physical play a day. Now, I don't mean swinging from the trees, if they want to, fine, but I don't mean that kind of high level outdoor physical play for 3 hours, but actually waves of mild, moderate and high play. So getting wrapped up and outside, finding puddles to jump in, piles of crunchy leaves, bringing some leaves in later that you can continue that play into some leaf rubbings or leaf art and draw beaks and turn them into animals. You can do endless things with that. Fill a basin and have a sensory basin with outdoor nature bits. But you also want to ensure that they're outdoor playing. So bring a ball, kick it around, make sure they bring bikes or scooters out with them so they have something to play with. Maybe use some pavement chalk and doing that, and draw things out that they can jump on and jump in. You could draw out a little assault course that tests out. It's really important that they get, is what I'm saying, that outdoor play, because it's so good for developing fine and gross motor skills. It always reminds me, in 2016 I read a newspaper article that the then manager of Man United Youth Academy, I think Nicky Butt, had talked about hiring circus performers to come in and coach the young people that they were training, because he and his team were discovering that they didn't know how to fall safely. They didn't know how to take a tumble. They didn't know how to roll over without hurting themselves. And they were actually hiring in circus professionals to teach falling skills. And I just, I read it, and in lots of ways that's interesting, but I just kind of thought, gosh, is that a consequence of children leading more sedentary, screen-based lives? Is this maybe a sign that our children do not get enough outdoor play, that we do not encourage them to take risks and chances? And I do have to add, there is a gendered lens to this that we should all be aware of, because there is tons of research out there, published research, that shows that as parents we are much more likely to urge our daughters to be cautious when doing rough and tumble play, while encouraging our same age boys to do exactly that. So we have to again go inwards to parent outwards and check our own internal bias. What might we be carrying? Because risk-taking behaviour comes into sharp focus in adolescent years, but it's not that it begins there. We have to be laying down through play, through informed, mindful play, understanding developmental play, understanding how our children play and why, praising their efforts over outcomes and being specific in that so that they really do gain some self-esteem from what we're saying and how we're encouraging their actions and play, that they get it reinforced from us to engage in positive, healthy, risk-taking behaviour, climbing trees, trying to balance on a wall, trying to, do something that we've never done before. How far can we jump? If I try it again and again, can I jump further? Can I do it again? And we're saying, wow, I love how you took your time with that. I can see you were really thinking and measuring the distance before you jumped. That was fantastic. Our praise needs to be specific and about effort over outcome. But if we can do that and create opportunities for our children to have access to those all-important 3 stages of developmental play, but also to explore their outdoor environment, to really explore the physicality of their bodies and to stretch themselves a little, not a lot, a little out of their comfort zone, which is to take a chance. We're encouraging and laying down the groundwork for that risk-taking behaviour that will stand to them in the moment, certainly, but really when it comes to those teenage years when actually it's very difficult to get messaging across otherwise. So get informed about play. Get involved in play, embrace it, and make sure that your children have access to all kinds of play that they need to grow, thrive, and develop into the wonderful little people that we want them to be.